to all of our students and faculty after we're done today. I see that Mr. Bray has his classroom in here, so that's awesome. And then Jasmine, we'll just go through the questions, and if any students have questions at the end, if it's okay with you, we'll just open it up if we have some time. Does that sound good? Oh, Jasmine, I think you might be frozen.
You're frozen.
Oh, so are you?
Can you hear me?
Okay, wait, let's see. Let's give it a second. Okay, I think that's good. Can you hear me okay?
Excellent. I can.
Okay, good. Okay, so Jasmine, thank you for doing this with us today. We are joined, you guys, by Jasmyne Jackson. She is class of 2008, and she is currently a pediatric resident at Boston Children's Hospital, which is affiliated with Harvard. It is a Harvard teaching hospital. So we are so lucky to have her join us. She's super busy. And we just have some questions for you, Jasmine. We want to know all about your time at Country Day, your time at Michigan, and what you're doing now. So thank you for joining us. And I think we should just take it back to where it all started. So talk to us about upper school Jasmine, what it was like for you here at Country Day, what activities you were involved in, some of your favorite teachers or classes, things like that.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Andy, for having me. It's actually funny. My best friend from high school and one of my bridesmaids and I were just talking a few months ago about how much we loved our Country Day experience.
Oh, that's awesome.
Shout out to Kim Pirtle.
Yes,
so
Kim.
it's great to be here. So back at Country Day, you know, I started Country Day in 9th grade, transferred over from Southwood Public Schools. And it was such an amazing experience because there were so many after school activities and in-school activities to do. And so some of the things that I were involved in and really enjoyed was class board. I was the vice president. That was so much fun because we got to plan homecoming and prom. And then also got to do a couple of other school-based events, such as Under the Lights, if that's still in. I also did Community Service Club with Miss Keeler, who was my advisor and was the librarian at that time. And that was some of my first exposure into, you know, what does it look like to be a person who values service and giving back to the community, which has been a thread throughout my career, even now as a physician. I was also a part of the girls basketball team in which we won the state championship in 2008. And I'm still friends with some of my teammates from that team. I did soccer, but I was terrible, so I only did JV. So like, let's focus on what I'm actually good at. Yeah, those are like some of the main highlights as far as extracurriculars. Classes, definitely loved my biology and science classes, which really sparked my interest into medicine and what it's like to think about the human body and how it functions. With Mr. Doherty was my biology teacher. I definitely remember that. And then Ms. Singleton, if she's still there, was my English teacher who I took an elective with that was about multicultural literature. And getting exposed to different types of literature from authors of different backgrounds and talking about their experiences. So that was a really formative class as well.
Got it. Okay, cool. So when you weren't like physically in a classroom, where did you spend your time in school? Were you like a commons room person? Were you a hallway person? Were you a library person? Where were you kind of hanging out?
Yeah, I was a hallway person until we were allowed in the commons room. So I remember we played music on our laptops. Back then we had iPods, if you can believe it. Those had just hit the streets. And even prior to that, we had CD players, which is actually the thing about carrying a CD player in my blazer at Country Day.
Oh my gosh, yes, people did used to do that. That's so funny. I recall that. Okay, so Jasmine, after you graduated from Country Day, you went to Michigan. So tell us a little bit about your experience at Michigan. I mean, you were extremely active as a student there. And if you can, give us a little insight into what your transition was like from DCDS, which is a small environment, to Michigan, which is a much bigger community. And did your DCDS network play a role for you when you were there?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm a huge Michigan fan. I always carry my Michigan water bottle. I think Michigan's a fantastic institution.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, some of my close friends from Country Day also transitioned over to Michigan too. And there was a number of students who were the years above me. So already within a school that has, over 20,000 students, that had a built-in network already. Gabrielle Sims, who I know has done one of these, was a few
Yep.
years ago in Michigan and really looked out and was one of the RAs in my building.
Oh.
So that was extremely helpful. Academically, I can't say enough how Country Day prepares you for whatever college you go to in
Mm-hmm.
those courses. Especially with some of the more difficult classes at Country Day, was really enabled me to take some of the harder classes, science classes at Michigan, and test out of certain classes that were required for being pre-med and just jump into things like organic chemistry.
Right.
And having that Country Day network to fall back on at Michigan, I already had a built-in group of friends to then use as a branch point to meet other people, because if they lived in different dorms, you meet their friends.
Right.
So it really set me up well, both socially and academically. In addition, some of those things I said I was involved with at Country Day definitely were launch points into things I was involved with at Michigan. So,
Okay.
being on class board at Country Day got me my interest into student government, in which
Mm-hmm.
I was a part of at Michigan, our student government, and served on two different committees. One was the health committee and the other one was the multicultural affairs
Okay.
committee. So you're starting to see some themes here
Right.
of things that of interest that were born at Country Day. Other
Okay.
things I was involved in, I joined a sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, which is a service-based organization, taking
Mm-hmm.
those ties back to a community service club at Country Day. And then I did a lot of mentorship, because I felt that at Country Day, as a new student, especially someone that didn't go to the middle school or the lower school,
Right.
mentorship was really important to my success. And so
Mm-hmm.
I did a number of different mentorship programs, both for younger undergraduate students and students from the Metro Detroit area that were either in high school
Okay.
or middle school. And those experiences then led me to think about, what does it look like to build community, and what does it look like to give back throughout your career?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah.
Okay. So did you know when you were at DCDS that you wanted to be a doctor, like specifically, or was that something that you like realized fully when you were in college? Like, this is the career path I want to pursue.
Yeah, so what's funny about it is I was thinking about business and was thinking about doing something within sports. I knew, I wasn't going to be a professional athlete, but I still
Right.
think about, like, what does it look like to be like a sports agent or
Mm-hmm.
in the sports industry in some way, shape, or form. And then my best friend that I knew since elementary school, went to Groves down the street, was diagnosed with lymphoma, which is a form of cancer,
Wow.
when we were juniors in high school. And she had to miss almost her entire junior year, was super sick in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to see firsthand what it looks like for doctors to support families holistically and be there during those rough moments. Because for a 16-year-old to not be able to go to school, to lose all their hair, to lose so
Right.
much weight, to be in the hospital, is extremely stressful. And luckily, her oncologist and her cancer doctor saved her life. And she's good and living in Atlanta now.
Wow. Okay.
Businesswoman too. So just seeing like how doctors are able to play a role in her life
Mm-hmm.
sparked my interest in medicine. And so what does medicine look like to get kids to do the activities that they love and to live a fulfilling life? And I got to
Mm-hmm.
see that firsthand through my best friend in high school.
Wow. Okay. So you had like a very personal experience that kind of guided your reason for becoming a doctor. So, okay, that's really interesting. So after you graduated from Michigan, you decided to pursue an MD MBA, which, I mean, for those of us who might not be familiar, you are literally getting an MBA and you're also becoming a doctor. So you did both these things at Michigan. Is this a dual program? Like, what inspired you to do both? I mean, tell us about this, because it's just like a very cool and interesting combination that obviously makes you a very unique doctor with this particular degree along with your MD.
Yeah, for sure. So right after I graduated from Michigan, I worked for a nonprofit called Health Corps,
Mm-hmm.
in which I was in a high school in Cleveland that was of lower economic status and really helped build up their health programming. And
Okay.
so thinking about how can you bridge both the skills in business and the skills in medicine to help communities. And that was my first exposure to starting thinking about, what skills does the business side have? Well, they have skills about sustainability. They know how to
Mm-hmm.
use resources to build programs and to how to get funding and how to make sure that people are building up their own leadership skills. And then bridging that with medicine, which really thinks about health. I thought, these create a lot of opportunities to have a larger impact.
Mm-hmm.
And Michigan's medical school actually made me a dean scholar because of all the great academic found work that places like Country Day lay just really build you up to do some amazing things within academics. And so because I was a dean scholar, they gave me a scholarship to do an additional degree of my choosing. And
Wow.
so that gave me the ability to think about what does it look like to do a dual degree that you don't have to pay for. Because as we know, thinking about the cost of
Right.
degrees can be a huge barrier. So I was very lucky to not have to think about that.
Mm-hmm.
And so because of my experiences with teaching and thinking about what skill set do I need to build to have that larger impact when it comes to the health of communities, I thought business is the perfect one. And so what that looks like for me in med school was I did my first, so med school is 4 years. A business
Mm-hmm.
school degree is typically 2 years. There are some 1-year degree programs, but Michigan's is 2 years. And so I did my
Okay.
first 3 years of medical school uninterrupted, like every other medical student. And then for that 4th year, I only did half of my 4th year and then did a year and a half of business school
Okay.
straight through. Did my other half of my 4th year and then did the last semester of business school. So I completed both degrees in 5 years.
Wow. Okay, that's really cool. So for any students who are potentially interested in doing something like that in the future, there's actually lots of ways that you can do dual degrees. So you can reach out to Jasmine too and find out more about her experience and what that was like. Because I think it really makes you like a very unique um, professional, because you just have these different modes of thinking that are guiding the decisions that you're making every day. So I think that that's, so awesome that you did that. And so much of the work that you did at Michigan, and just from what I know about you, and what's important to you, centers around inequity and health in healthcare. And for students who might just be learning about what this means, can you share with us a little bit about what inequity in healthcare looks like?
Yeah, definitely. So this is a topic that is getting a lot more attention nationally, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic that we're in currently. We see some of the effects of health inequities. So let's take it a couple steps back into talking about disparities. So
Mm-hmm.
disparities are differences in outcomes between people. And these can be related to things like education. So if one person only has a high school diploma and another one has a master's or a bachelor's from college, they're going to have different opportunities in their lifetime. And those different opportunities result in things like difference in income, difference in housing, difference in their social networks. And those can impact then their health. Because what we know is that if you have a higher income, then you have the ability to get better health insurance. And so if you have a medical need, then you can afford to get the best medications and see the best specialists if you have a higher income and your insurance pays for it. That's one example. Another example
Mm-hmm.
that we know is when it comes to things like housing. Think about those aspects that make you happy at the end of the day. Some of those
Mm-hmm.
things may be, you know, having a roof over your head, a bed to sleep in, people around you that care about you and love you and make you feel safe, and then food on the table. Those are very basic needs that every human being needs to have a
Mm-hmm.
fulfilled and healthy life. If we take away something as basic as housing, then they're exposed to their environment. So they're
Right.
not sleeping in a place that's safe for them. That increases their stress levels, meaning that they're going to have a higher chance of having heart disease or a higher chance of having something called diabetes. What we also know is this affects kids.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I've seen a number of newborns who, when I'm talking to the parents about, you know, what does your housing situation look like, they say that they're homeless. And
Right.
so we're talking about someone who's on their first day of life, brand new to the world, a new little baby who does not have a place to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not fair. That is not just. How can we expect, you know, a little baby to be able to grow into a healthy kid and then to a healthy teen, into a healthy adult, if they don't have something as basic as a crib to sleep in?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of the way that I think about inequities, in ways that we can solve them is when I really put on my business side hat and
Okay.
say, you know, what does it look like to partner with companies and with nonprofits and with government entities or government sectors such as
Mm-hmm.
the Department of Public Health to really get ahead and combat things like poverty, which is a root cause of why we see some of these differences in health outcomes. I'm happy to chat about this more to anyone who is interested.
Yes.
I think at the end of the day, it's all about thinking about the things that make you happy in your life and make you feel safe in your life. And what would your life look like if you did not have one of those things? And that's the
Mm-hmm.
reality that some people have to live in.
Right. Exactly. And yes, for anybody who is interested in learning more about this, please reach out to Jasmine because she truly considers herself and is an advocate in this way and has a lot of information to share with you about how this impacts children and families. So tell us a little bit about your current job as a pediatric resident at Boston Children's. Walk us through your day, what you have to accomplish, kind of give us like an on the ground view, if you can, of what you do every single day.
Yeah, definitely. So residency, no matter if you're doing it in something like pediatrics or surgery, residency is really about building a broad base of skills to become an independent doctor. And so this is a part of your training. And so similar to if you think about high school, like, you know, your ninth grade year, you're taking some of your more basic classes. And then as you move on to 12th grade year, you get more and more responsibility over picking your classwork. That's similar for residency. And so what you're doing is you're building your ability to take care of patients by yourself, both in the outpatient world, so where you
Mm-hmm.
go to see your pediatrician for your annual checkups or for a sick visit or for a visit on something like asthma. So learning how to do all of those skills, but also on the inpatient world, which my program in particular, being a Harvard hospital, is
Mm-hmm.
really majority of our time is focused on the inpatient side of things. So that's
Right.
when someone gets really, really sick and needs to be in the hospital for around the clock care because they're not safe to go home. And some of the things that looks like for me, so just to give you a few examples, is you're on different rotations that take care of different kids with different problems. So one example is a kid needs a lung transplant. And so I will take care of that kid after they've gotten a lung transplant. I've done that.
Okay.
We take care of kids who are born really early. So I've taken care of babies that are born 3 months early and are super sick when they're
Mm-hmm.
first born, and they need something called a breathing machine or a ventilator because they can't breathe on their own, and they have tubes coming out of everywhere. And so we manage those babies, and we are able to do something. For example, one baby who was not breathing on their own was breathing through a tube and a ventilator, also had a number of different chest tubes in because they had different bleeds places. We're able to to get that
Wow.
baby off of the ventilator, off of medications for their blood pressure, take out all the chest tubes and get them from a place where they were super sick to now going home and living with their parents. And so seeing a really broad spectrum of kids who are just coming in for a little bit because maybe they have like a really bad cold and just need a little bit of oxygen support, to kids
Mm-hmm.
who are intubated and need medications for their blood pressure and are in a coma because we need to figure out like how can we get them home. And so really the broad spectrum of health. And as a resident, you are working, a lot of hours. So
Mm-hmm.
on average, 70 hours a week in the
Wow.
hospital because you need to learn those skills. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
you work overnight, and sometimes you work even 24-hour shifts because
Okay.
they're your patient. You're,
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, the one who's carrying out the care. And you do have a supervising doctor, like someone who's a more mature attending doctor to fall back on if you have a question. But a lot of the day-to-day care is on you. And so you are really the front line of the patients and their families' care.
Yeah. And I'm sure you find that, especially from your time, playing sports at Country Day, you're really part of a team when you're doing that because you're working with the nurses and you're working with the parents. So I'm sure you have to kind of also use your teamwork skills every single day as well in this job.
And you're so right. It's all about teamwork. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
if you like sports, medicine is a really great option. And there's a lot of different roles within the health field. So you can do something called respiratory therapy. So we work with the respiratory therapists who help us manage those breathing machines. We work with nursing daily, all the
Mm-hmm.
time, both in inpatient setting and outpatient setting to help provide care for patients. We work with the physical therapist. There's so many different roles are needed, and we
Mm-hmm.
need good people to fill those roles so that we can really support our families.
Got it. Yes, that's really cool. And thank you for giving us a glimpse into different careers that you could take on if you're interested in medicine, but not maybe necessarily want to be a doctor. So thank you for that. So after you're done with your residency, Jasmine, what are your goals? What do you want to do? And then for any DCDS students who are interested in going into medicine, what would you say are important experiences or mindsets they should have while considering this as a career path?
Definitely. So after residency, I went to do pediatric emergency medicine. So this is
Okay.
the doctor who, if you are under the age typically of 25 and you need to go to the emergency room, they're the ones who are going to take care of you. And
Okay.
this allows me to have those acute moments of people who are in need in that moment. Because you go to the emergency room because this is the place that you have to go because it's an emergency. And
Mm-hmm.
so I enjoy having those intense moments with families and being able to like help them in a crisis or a moment of need. So
Okay.
that's one of my career goals. Long down the line, I want to move into healthcare administration, meaning helping to run a hospital. So using those teamwork skills, those leadership skills that first started at Country Day
Yeah.
and have built throughout my career from business school and now as a resident. And I want to be in that role as a leader of a hospital so I can help us think about health equity
Mm-hmm.
and how we can address the disparities that I mentioned from a higher level of a higher impact than what I can do just on the one-on-one basis.
Okay.
For anyone who's interested in medicine or healthcare in general, I think figuring out what's important to you, what are your values, and sticking to those. Because medicine is such a broad field. I have some of my co-residents who were art majors and they're really passionate about writing stories and they're
Okay.
interested in this thing called narrative medicine that's getting a lot of attention now. And how can we tell patients stories in a way that helps promote care? And
Mm-hmm.
so if you're interested in art, that means that you can also do medicine. If you're interested in sports, you can also do medicine. I have friends who are now orthopedic surgeons, for example, and were really interested in sports, or myself, who loves basketball and loves that the Lakers won yesterday. I was a LeBron fan, who's interested in medicine and thinks about, what does it look like to lead a
Okay.
team? So there's so many different paths you can take to becoming a doctor. And what's important is that you stick to your passions, whether it's music, whether it's art, or whether it's, research. And there's a way to thread that throughout your career. Everyone's career can look differently. And that's the great thing about the medical field.
I love that. That is so cool. The narrative medicine thing sounds really interesting. I want to learn more about that. I think that that's fascinating. Okay, Jasmine, thank you. I will stop with my questions, but are there any questions out there from anybody? Mr. Bray's class, want to come off mute? Or if you want to put it in the chat too, Mr. Bray, I can ask Jasmine if you're having trouble with your sound.
Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry. I got a new computer and I'm trying to figure it out. So you touched on, thank you so much, Jasmine, for your time and for all that you're doing to represent yourself and change your community and our school, and we're very proud of you.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Bray.
So you addressed the stuff about athletics, and I thought that was really, really great that you did. I've got a question. I'm a government teacher, and you mentioned partnering with business and government and healthcare is a big issue. I'm wondering your take on, many times in our politics, politicians will say, hey, the private sector is the best to handle situations, or other politicians will say it's got to be government run and all that stuff. What do you find, as a person that deals with it every day? What do you find in terms of the politics and actual healthcare? How should we be thinking about that? As we go to vote this fall.
Great question.
Yeah. So I think that having worked for my MBA internship, I have worked for the largest Medicaid organization, which is actually a private business. And so I was able to see things from their perspective. And then also as a doctor, I see things from the healthcare perspective. I think that healthcare should be available to all. And so what is the way to do that? In my personal opinion, is through the public sector. Because anytime we're working in the private sector for at least administering insurance and healthcare, there's going to be these differences between who gets what based on how much money that they make. And there's never a bare minimum. It's always goes lower and lower, instead of saying like, oh, okay, no matter if you make 100,000 versus 25,000, this is the line that is here. We're going to bring those people who make less up to the people who make more. It's never like that in the private sector. In the public sector, we would have the ability to bring the people who make less up to the level of the people who make more by using some of those public sector funds that we know are available and sometimes aren't used in the most appropriate ways. What the private sector could help with is making sure that those funds are used more efficiently, because we know there can be a lot of duplication in the way that we use money in the public sector. And so with bridging both the private sector and the public sector, let's use both of what they're actually good at to make sure that we're taking care of as many people as possible. And I think right now, unfortunately, people are kind of in their own lanes and silos, and we don't have a lot of that crosstalk to work together. Mm-hmm. And hopefully in the future, we can get beyond arguing and start thinking about how we can just use what we're both good at to really build up healthcare.
Great question. Thank you, Mr. Bray. Jasmine, I think you should also consider running for office, because that was a really interesting answer, and I think it makes a lot of sense. So thank you so much. I think that was a great way to close. We really appreciate your time, Jasmine. You're the best. Thank you so much. And if any students want to reach out to you, is it okay for them to do that?
Definitely, definitely. Oh, I love UCDS. This has been such an honor. Annie, thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Ray, what a great question. Go Yellow Jackets.
Yay. Thank you, Jasmine. We'll see you soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.